Hello and welcome to No Particular Order, Mana Biscuit's weekly top 5 list show where we list our top 5 whatevers in no particular order. This week, top 5 immersive moments in gaming. All right, we're going to get right into our list this week. Top 5 most immersive moments in gaming. These are games that stand out to us because of their immersive moments. And plot twist, this week I'll go first. So, number one,
Whoa.
I know, yes, right? Got to keep it mixed up. Yeah. All right. Well, while TJ scrapes his brains off the wall, I will get right into my list. Number one for me is EverQuest. No surprise there for return viewers and people who know me as the EverQuest evangelist. But one of the most immersive aspects of EverQuest is something that would not fly in today's standards, and that is the quest system in the original EverQuest, not EverQuest as it exists now, but the quest system had you walk up to NPCs, press a button to hail them, and you actually converse the NPCs in the chat box, and there would be these little bracketed words. And so, in order to get a quest, you would talk to somebody to be like, "Hail, merchant, whatever," and he would be like, "Oh, something about these damn bracketed rats," and then you would have to type, "What about the rats?" And so there was this whole like text adventure style interaction with the NPC, and it really encouraged exploration and experimentation in the early days before everyone ultimately just went and looked up everything online like you do. But in the early days, people had to actually explore and interact in order to determine what the quests were, what the world was, and you get a lot of the lore, and that's where the immersion comes in. Some of these things don't lead to quests, some of them just lead to interesting stuff about the politics or the history of the world. So yes, A+ for immersion there, EverQuest. Next is The Witcher 3, far more modern, far more universally lauded by modern gamers, and deservedly so, except by TJ. But the beauty of that, and it's been talked to death, if you read anything about The Witcher 3, you know how this works. The quest system there isn't, there's a lot of point A to point B, collect 10 bear asses and bring them back, but there are branching story paths. There are entire paths of the story that you will miss if you just follow that straight progression line running to markers. They're peppered throughout the world are people that you can talk to that enrich the world, enrich the experience, and they give you quests that expand on different characters, different aspects of the lore, and the massive war situation that's happening. A+ Witcher 3 for immersion. Next, Fallout New Vegas. The most immersive thing about that, I think, is the immediacy with which you were brought into the world. The opening scene where you get a bullet in the head and you wake up and literally have no idea where you are, who you are, and you have to go out and explore and find things out for yourself. Yeah, A+ there. And the Baldur's Gate series, that and my next entry, which I'll get to in a minute, has more to do with immersion in terms of character choice. The Baldur's Gate series was the first of the prototypical, if you will, BioWare RPG with alignments and alignment-based choices, and you can play as good or evil and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of interesting things to come out with in the world there. And then the more modern, although God, it's like almost 8 years old now, the Mass Effect series with the Paragon and Renegade is still there have been advances in morality and decision making, most notably in The Witcher 3, but the idea of the world there, of humanity being this newcomer to this galactic political landscape, really drew me in terms of the story, exploration of the various planets and different species that form this galactic political landscape, and then, of course, the whole story with the Reapers and ancient history and cyclical destruction and creation and all that jazz, which, right up my alley there. But yeah, I was never really quite as immersed, and I don't think I ever will be, as the first time I played Mass Effect 1 with the decisions and the consequence and the import that they're given really drew me in. So that's my list. Next up, we will go to the randomly selected participant, Jay. Jay, what are your top five?
All right. My top number one, Final Fantasy 3, from opening credit to very end. This was my first experience with a Super Nintendo. I went over to a friend's house and stayed the night at what, like 8 years old, and we played through that thing the entire night. And I still remember the opening screen with the music and everything else, and how things have changed is just it's amazing, but this it still goes back to that sound. And I number two on my list, Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic, the Sega Genesis was my very first system. My parents skipped over to the Nintendo altogether, decided that the Genesis was it for us, and I discovered up C down C left C right C, the level editor, and I lost so much time experimenting and learning what was possible with games, and just making little tweaks to levels to make things more difficult and things like that, and then play through it and then have to reset it and up C down C left C right C to go through and set everything back up again. I lost so much time with that. Silent Hill. Again, it was my first experience with I believe it was the PlayStation, and it showed me something else that was possible. The exploration of the mansion, and or the exploration of the school, pardon me, and things like that. I'm confusing Resident Evil as well, but it showed me just what you could do and with just a scene. Next up is Fantasy Star, for the original Sega Master System. This world was, for an 8-bit world, just massive. I mean, you got to go to the moon and explore other planets, and yeah, you'd have to backtrack and go back, and it was one of those things that the world was huge and it was totally worth exploring. The last on my list is World of Warcraft, specifically the opening at Elwyn Forest and the killing of Hogger and things like that. Stuff that people just simply take for granted now, that we did as what, the 2 3 months into the game. And it was one of those things. It was insanely difficult for starters, for somebody that had no weapons, no money. Nowadays, gold farmers, we just buy everything we want to get and we call it good and we sail through it all. But RJ, you and I were roommates at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and you and Josh, actually, your counterpart there at GameStop, were playing, and then I was by myself playing when you guys weren't around. So yeah, that was the only opportunity I got to play that game, and so I was by myself while you guys were partying up, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go try Hogger, and Hogger whooped my butt,
Yeah, he
and
did.
I ran away and hid in the I ran away and I hid in the weeds, shivering and just having got my ass handed to me, and a random mage came over, bandaged me, and gave me 20 silver, which at
Oh,
that point in time was an outrageous amount of money.
Yeah.
And the next thing, I went and I bought gear and got things to the point where I could do it, and
Excellent.
it made the entire difference for me. It was an immersive moment in
All right. Well,
gaming. Loved it.
we're running a little long, so we're gonna keep things moving along.
All right,
All
keep
right.
moving.
TJ, your top five most immersive moments in gaming.
okay. Starting with a game that I've talked about in a moment, I've talked about before, Red Dead Redemption, the entry into Mexico. The second you hop on your horse, the musical cue, and a lot of my stuff actually revolves around musical cues, because music does have that capacity to move us and to transport us into another place. Uh, my second one is from Assassin's Creed 2, towards the beginning of the game, because you play through a pretty extended intro sequence before you even hit the credits. And at the end of that intro sequence, where they're very subtly teaching you, these are the controls, you're racing your brother, climbing up buildings, and you get up to the top, and it goes into a cutscene, and the title splash, and the music by Jasper Kidd is just so amazing. It really drew you into that world. Next is BioShock. A man chooses, a slave obeys, which was interestingly immersive because it took you out of the story. Nothing has made me feel that dichotomy of character and player so keenly ever. Next, another game I've discussed, and another thing in it I've discussed, Fatal Frame, which the entire thing was immersive. Oh my god. Because I was living with some people at the time, and I came downstairs from my room and saw one of my roommates playing this game and just freaking out. And he's like, I can't play this anymore. I'm like, oh, come on, it's just a game. Let me in on this. And then about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, as we played at midnight on a dark and stormy night, we were like, oh my god! And resolved to only play in the daylight hours. And then the final one is The Legend of Zelda, The Ocarina of Time, when you get Epona, your horse. And you hop on the back of your horse, and you have the entire, Hyrule Fields area open to you, and it seemed so huge, even though now that world isn't that big at all. But at the time, it just seemed so massive. It covered so much. And those are my 5 immersive
All right.
moments.
So, real quick, as we do our top 5 to top 5 review, for me, you had EverQuest, Witcher 3, Fallout New Vegas, Baldur's Gate, and Mass Effect. From Jay, Final Fantasy 3, World of Warcraft, Sonic the Hedgehog, Silent Hill, and Phantasy Star. And for TJ, Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed 2, BioShock, Fatal Frame, and Ocarina of Time. So, nominations for the top 5 and top 5.
Mass Effect.
Okay, I'll buy that for $1.
Mass Effect.
World of Warcraft.
Yes. All right. I am going to force EverQuest onto the list because it would not be a Mana Biscuit show if I did not. And let's see. Also, I'm going to go with, from TJ, I'm going to go with Red Dead Redemption, riding into Mexico. Absolutely. And although I've never played it, I do understand the feeling of exploration in early era JRPGs, so I'm going to nominate Phantasy Star. Because I like that too. All right, so that's our top 5 and top 5. Join us next week when our list will be top 5 reasons TJ yawns while RJ's talking. Because
I could do that top 5 right now.
All right. We'll do that off the air, and you can tell me why my voice bores you. All right, thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you next week for more No Particular Order. Bye-bye.
Bye.